Before we start, the most effective kind of threat is the one that has been operating for a long time before you notice it. By the time the people in tonight's stories understood what was happening, the thing had already been happening for days, weeks, longer. Subscribe if you want more. First story, right now. The first time I noticed something was wrong, I told myself I was the kind of person who would notice something like this even when nothing was wrong. The kind of person who remembers where they left things and notices when they are not exactly where they were left. Meticulous, possibly mildly anxious. Not the kind of person who has a valid reason to be concerned. By the fourth time I noticed something, I was the kind of person who had a valid reason to be concerned. My name is Blair. I am a contracts analyst at a mid-sized firm. The specific industry does not matter for this story. What matters is that I have my own workspace, a dedicated desk in an open plan office on the 14th floor of a building that has key card access, a security desk in the lobby, and a camera system in the hallways and common areas. It is, by the standards of most office buildings, reasonably secure. It is the kind of secure that makes you feel comfortable, which is the kind of secure that matters until it doesn't. I work late regularly, not every night, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, depending on the workload. I am usually the last person on the floor by about 7. The cleaning crew comes through at 8, 2 people. I know them both by name. After 8, the floor is empty until the early arrivals start coming in around 6:30 the next morning. I know this because I am sometimes still there when they arrive. The floor has its rhythm, and I know the rhythm. The first thing I noticed was my mug. I keep a specific coffee mug at my desk. The handle faces right when I set it down, always right, because I am right-handed, and I reach for it without looking. One Thursday morning, I sat down and reached for the mug, and my hand hit the ceramic side instead of the handle. And I looked at it, and the handle was facing left toward the window, away from my chair. I picked it up, rotated it, set it back down, and thought I put it down in a hurry last night and got the orientation wrong. Or the cleaning crew moved it. This happens. I did not think about it again for 3 days. 3 days later, my second monitor, I have 2 monitors. The left one, I angle slightly inward toward the right monitor because I do most of my reading on the right screen and I need the left to be in peripheral range. It has been angled this way for 2 years. The angle is automatic at this point. I set it up when I moved to this desk and I have not adjusted it since. On that Monday morning, the left monitor was angled outward toward the window instead of inward toward the right screen. Not dramatically, subtly. An inch of difference, maybe, but different. I adjusted it and sat down. I thought the cleaning crew probably bumping it with the cart. I thought it was always like this, and I'm misremembering. I did not think about the mug. 3 days after that, my chair height. I have a specific chair height adjusted so my elbows are at desk level, which I set when I started at this firm and have not changed. I sat down that Thursday morning and immediately felt wrong. Seat too low, elbows too high relative to the desk. The chair had been lowered, not a lot, 1 centimeter, maybe 2, but lowered. And the lowering was deliberate. You have to press and hold a lever for several seconds to change the height on that model. It does not happen accidentally. I stopped. I sat in the too low chair and I held very still and I thought about the mug and the monitor and the chair height. And I thought these are 3 separate things over the course of about a week, all at the same workstation, all small, all individually explainable. And I had not explained any of them at the time of occurrence. I had filed and moved on. That is the mechanism. Each small thing in isolation is small enough to file and move on from. And the filing and moving on prevents the accumulation from being visible. By the time you accumulate enough to see the picture's been building for a while. I started documenting, I want to say that clearly. I started documenting before I told anyone, before I reported anything, because I was not yet certain I had something to report. I began taking a photograph of my desk at the end of every evening before I left. Monitor angle, mug position, chair height, the specific arrangement of whatever was on the desk surface, time-stamped. On my personal phone, not the work network. I did this for 2 weeks. In 2 weeks of documentation, I found 4 incidents. Night-over-night comparisons showing the monitor moved, the chair adjusted. On 4 separate occasions, the nights I had worked late and left after 8. The nights the floor was empty from 8 until the following morning's early arrivals. On 3 of those 4 nights, my computer had been accessed. I found this out through the IT department, indirectly, in a way that I want to describe carefully, because it is the part of this story that changed it from unsettling to genuinely frightening. I asked IT, without explaining why, whether it was possible to see log records of when my specific workstation had been active. I said I was trying to reconstruct a work timeline. IT pulled the logs and sent them to me. On 3 of the 4 nights, when my physical workspace had been altered, my computer had been logged into using my credentials between the hours of 9 p.m. and midnight. I had not been in the building on those nights after 8. I had keycard logs to confirm this. I had requested my own entry and exit records from the building management company, again without specific explanation, citing a security audit I was conducting for a contract. 3 nights. My login, not my presence. Someone had my password. Someone was logging into my computer after I left the building using my credentials on the nights when the floor was empty. Someone was sitting at my desk, adjusting my chair to their height, rotating my mug, angling my monitor, and working at my computer for 1 to 3 hours after the building was supposed to be empty. I want to be clear about what the computer access showed. IT confirmed the logins. They did not flag them as anomalous. Because my credentials were used, the system had no reason to flag them. What was accessed on those 3 nights? My email, my contract files, my saved documents, accessed, not necessarily copied, though there was no way to confirm from the logs whether files had been transferred. 3 nights of someone sitting at my desk, in my chair, adjusted to their height, using my login, reading my email and my work files, and then leaving. I reported it on a Friday morning, not to HR, first to the building security manager, who connected me to the firm's security officer, who contacted the police. The officer who took my report was a man named Roscoe, patient and specific, who went through everything I had documented, the photographs, the IT logs, the keycard records. He said, "You kept good records." He said it with the appreciation of someone who regularly deals with accounts that are not well documented. The investigation found that building security had a gap. Not a forced entry, an access gap. A key card associated with a former contractor who had not been deactivated when their contract ended 14 months prior. 14 months of valid building access on a card that should have been disabled. The former contractor was identified, interviewed, and ultimately charged with unauthorized computer access. I will not give their name. I will tell you that the motive, as far as I understand it, was access to contract information for a competing firm they had moved to after the contract ended. Corporate espionage conducted from my desk at my computer using my password, which they had apparently retained from their time in the building. Here is what I need you to hear about this, because I think about it every time I sit at my desk, which I still do, at the same firm, on the same floor. They had been doing this for at least 6 weeks before I noticed the mug. 6 weeks is the earliest date on the IT logs that showed anomalous off-hours access. 6 weeks of someone sitting at my specific workstation in my chair reading my files. And I had noticed nothing until a Thursday morning when I reached for a coffee mug and my hand hit the wrong side of it. The mug saved me. Not metaphorically, the mug handle facing the wrong direction is what started the documentation that produced the evidence that led to the charge. Without that mug, I might still be sitting at a desk that someone else was using 3 nights a week. I changed my password the morning I reported it. I change it now every 30 days. I photograph my desk before I leave every single evening. I know this sounds excessive. I know it takes 2 minutes. I did not used to spend 2 minutes is nothing. 2 minutes is the difference between 6 weeks of invisible access and a documented record that builds a case. My coworker Tatum asked me, after it became known in the office, these things become known, why I had not reported it sooner. I told her what I just told you. Each individual thing was small enough to file and move on from. She said, "But didn't you feel like something was wrong?" I said, "Yes, every single time. I felt like something was wrong, and I explained it away and moved on 3 times before I stopped moving on. Don't move on after the first one. Don't file it. Document it. The mug was the first one. I should have documented the mug. I do not think of myself as a person who makes friends easily on the trail. I am not unfriendly. I say good morning. I move over for faster hikers. I leave a clean sight. But I am a solo hiker by preference and by temperament, which means I am not looking for conversation, and most people read that quickly and respect it. The trail culture is good about that. You can hike for a week and say 30 words, and it is entirely acceptable. That is part of what I love about it. I am telling you this because I want you to understand that what started with the notes was not something I sought out. I did not leave notes for other hikers. I did not use the trail registers to write messages beyond my name, the date, and my planned destination. The note-leaving culture of the AT is real people leave encouraging messages, jokes, weather reports, and I had always read them without participating. The notes at Shelter 7 and the shelters that came after it were the first time someone left notes specifically for me. And I want you to understand that I found it charming initially, and that finding it charming was the thing I should have been more careful about. My name is Knox. I am 41 years old. I was hiking a 2-week section of the AT through western North Carolina, a route I had planned for 8 months, a solo trip, no fixed itinerary beyond general mileage targets per day. I had a permit for the section registered at the trailhead. My emergency contact was my friend Grady, who expected a check-in every 2 days, standard. I reached Shelter 7 on day 4 at around 4 in the afternoon. Good time, good weather, a good day. The shelter was a standard 3-sided structure, a sleeping platform inside, a register on a nail, a bear box outside. Empty when I arrived. I signed the register, Knox M, arriving from the south, heading north, October 12, and started making dinner. About an hour later, I opened the shelter register properly, the way I sometimes do at the end of a day, reading back through recent entries for weather reports or notes about trail conditions ahead. 3 entries above mine was a note that stood out from the others. The other entries were typical names, dates, destinations, the occasional one-liner. This one was longer. It said, Knox figured you'd make Shelter 7 tonight, given your pace. Good camping at the spring, a half-mile past the north end if the shelter is crowded. Left you the last of the peanut butter crackers in the bear box, second shelf. Gorgeous ridge section ahead tomorrow. Take your time on the exposed section. The view lasts about 200 yards before the trail drops. Safe travels. I read this 3 times. The crackers were in the bear box where the note said they would be. My name was in the note. Not a common name, not John or Mike Knox, which is specific enough that a stranger guessing would not guess it. My pace, referenced accurately, I had been averaging 18 to 20 miles a day, and Shelter 7 was exactly where that pace put me on day 4. The note writer had calculated my arrival. I thought someone I know from the trail community who recognized me at some point, someone who knew I was doing this section and was running ahead of me. The trail is not anonymous. People talk, routes overlap. It is plausible that someone knew I was out here. T, no full name. I ate the crackers. I appreciated them. I left a note in the register. Thank you, T. Knox. And I went to sleep thinking nothing more than that this was the kind of small warmth that makes long solo trips livable. Shelter 9, day 6. I arrived to find another note. This one said, Knox, hope the ridge section was worth it. It's my favorite mile on this entire stretch. Did you camp at the spring or push through? Weather is turning Friday. You have a 2-day window before the front moves in. Waterfall on the side trail at mile marker 84 is worth the 20 minutes. See you further north. My pace. Again, accurate. Weather information that proved correct 2 days later, exactly as described. The waterfall detail, I took the side trail and it was exactly as described. 20 minutes. Worth it. I felt genuinely warm about T. I felt like I had a trail companion. I had never met one step ahead, leaving a trail of small gifts and accurate intelligence. I left another note, taking your advice on the waterfall worth every minute. See you further north. Knox. Day 8. Shelter 12. Note waiting. Knox been thinking about you out there. Rough section coming up. Creek crossings are running high from the rain upstream. Be careful at the third one. It moves fast. Hope your knees are holding up. The creek crossings were exactly as described, running high. The third one genuinely fast-moving, requiring more care than usual. My knees. I have a chronic issue with my right knee, a previous injury that flares on long days. I had mentioned it to no one on this trip. There was nobody to mention it to. I had not written about it in any register. I had not posted about the trip on any social media. I do not use it. I stood at the third creek crossing, water higher than I liked, and I thought T mentioned my knees specifically. Not general encouragement, my knees specifically. As if T knew about the injury. And I thought about the 3 notes, and I thought about the specific details in each of them. My name, my pace, the crackers placed where I would find them, the weather accurate to the day, the waterfall described to the minute, and I began to construct a picture that was different from the one I had been looking at. I made camp that night, and I called Grady on the satellite communicator. I read him all 3 notes verbatim. He was quiet for a moment and then said, "Have you seen this person?" I said, "No." He said, "Have you seen anyone on the trail at all who could be T?" I thought about it. I had passed 2 hikers going southbound on day 3, a couple. I had seen one other northbound hiker briefly at a water source on day 5, a man I had not spoken to. I had not seen anyone near any of the shelters when the notes were there. Grady said, "Call the ranger station. Ask them if there is a registered hiker with a name starting with T running your section ahead of you." I called the ranger station for the district the next morning. I gave them the permit registration dates for my section. I asked if there was a permit registered for a solo hiker going northbound, name starting with T, in the same window. There was no permit registered for any solo northbound hiker named T, or with a name beginning with T in my registration window. There were 2 other registered hikers in my section, both southbound, both accounted for. The northbound permits for my dates were mine and 1 other, a registered group of 3 who were a week behind me. I am not going to tell you I panicked. I sat with the phone after the ranger station call, and I thought carefully. Someone who knew my name, who knew my pace, who knew about my knee, who was leaving notes at shelters ahead of me, was not registered, was not legally on this section of trail, had been, for 8 days, staying ahead of me, enough ahead to leave notes and move on before I arrived. The ranger I spoke to asked why I was asking. I told him. He was quiet. Then he said, "I'm going to ask you to stay at your current location, and I am going to have a ranger meet you there this afternoon." The ranger who arrived was a woman named Park Ranger Tully, and she was calm and specific the way park service people are calm and specific when they have handled difficult situations before. She asked about each note. She asked whether I had any idea how someone might know about my knee injury. I said only people in my personal life knew. It was not on social media, not in any trail profile, not mentioned to anyone on the trail. She asked, "Who in your personal life knew you were doing this section?" I named 6 people, Grady and 5 others. She wrote them down. Then she said, "The notes describe your pace accurately from day 1. Someone who knew your pace that accurately either watched you start or had access to your itinerary before the trip." I had shared my general itinerary with 4 people, Grady and 3 others. I had posted no digital copy of it anywhere. I had told no one my specific daily mileage targets. I had been logging consistent 18 to 20 mile days, a pace that could be calculated from a start date and a known daily average. If someone knew my daily average, the investigation that followed is not fully resolved as of the time I am telling this story. What I know, the note paper was collected from the registers and processed. The handwriting is distinctive, blocky, deliberate, all capitals for proper nouns. No match was found in any immediate context. The person leaving the notes was never identified on trail cameras or shelter cameras in this section. They are believed to have been using off-trail access to get ahead, which in that terrain is possible but requires local knowledge or significant preparation. The knee detail is the one I come back to. Ranger Tully came back to it also. She said the knee detail is personal information. That is either someone who knows you personally and is on this trail without a permit, or someone who has had access to information about you that is not publicly available. She paused. Both of those are concerning in different ways. I finished the trip. I want to say that clearly I finished with ranger coordination and modified shelter use and 2-day check-ins instead of the original every 2 days schedule. I found no more notes after the ranger contact. Shelters 1, 3 through 18, where I camped, empty registers except my own entry and one or two other hikers. The last note had been at shelter 12. The note about my knees, Grady asked me afterward if I wished I had called sooner. I said I didn't know. The notes before the ranger call were they were warm, they were kind, accurate and kind, and the specific texture of something that felt like being cared for in the wilderness, which is something most solo hikers have a soft spot for. I wish I had asked at the ranger station after the second note. I wish I had checked the permit register at shelter 9. I wish the thing that felt like a trail guardian had been what it felt like when you are solo in the wilderness and a stranger is being specifically kind to you in ways that seem to know you. Check the permit register. Check who is registered on your section. Ask the ranger station if there is someone registered ahead of you with that description. Do it early. Do it when the notes are still warm and well-intentioned seeming, and before you have decided you know what they are. The feeling of being cared for and the feeling of being watched can come from the same set of facts. The difference is in what you do not yet know. Check what you do not yet know before the next story. If this is landing the way it should, good. That feeling is useful, keep it. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Drop a comment, tell me which detail from that first story you're still thinking about. A like takes 2 seconds and it helps this channel reach people who need to hear these 2 more stories, both worse. Let's keep going. I have been driving for a rideshare platform for 3 years, weeknights, usually a few Saturday evenings when I need the extra income. I have a day job. Driving is supplemental. I treat it as supplemental. Most rides are 5 to 15 minutes. Most passengers get in, look at their phone, get out. Some want to talk, some don't. You read it quickly and adjust. In 3 years, I have had maybe half a dozen rides I would describe as uncomfortable, and one that I ended early by pulling over and asking the passenger to exit, which the platform supports. What I'm going to tell you about is a ride I did not end early for reasons I want to explain, because the decision not to end it early was the right decision, even though every instinct I had was screaming at me to pull over. Sometimes the right decision and the instinct are different things. And in a confined moving car at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, the right decision was to keep driving and keep talking and get to the destination as fast as the route allowed. My name is Ember. The ride came in on a Tuesday at 11:17. The pickup was a downtown address. The destination was a residential neighborhood about 12 minutes away. Standard late night ride, the kind that comes when bars close or people stay late at dinner. The passenger rating was 4 to 8, which is fine, nothing flagging. He was waiting at the curb when I pulled up. He got in. He said, "Hey, Ember." And I said, "Hey, heading to address?" And he confirmed, and I pulled back into traffic. 4 minutes into the ride, he said, "Long shift today?" I said, "About average." He said, "You usually end around midnight on Tuesdays, right?" I looked in the rearview mirror. He was looking at his phone, casual, like he had said something obvious. The platform shows passengers my first name. It does not show my schedule. My schedule is not fixed. I decide when to start and stop each session. There is no pattern a stranger could see, because I do not drive regular hours. Tuesdays, I sometimes drive until midnight, sometimes until 10, sometimes not at all. There is no usually to see. I said carefully, "Depends on the night." And I watched his face in the mirror. He was still looking at his phone. He said, sure, and said nothing else for 2 minutes. I told myself, he rides a lot. He got lucky with the phrasing. He was making conversation. I told myself this, and I kept driving, and I kept watching the mirror, and I noted for the first time that he had not looked up from his phone since we started moving. Minute 6. He said, "You live over on the east side, right near the park. I live near a park on the east side of the city. This is not information on my driver profile. My driver profile shows my first name, my photo, my vehicle make and color, and my rating. That is all. My address, my neighborhood, my proximity to any park, none of that is platform information. None of that is anything a passenger should have." I kept my eyes on the road. I kept my voice even. I said, "You've been in this part of the city long," deflecting, not confirming, not denying, redirecting. He said, a while. He finally looked up from his phone. In the mirror, I could see him looking at the back of my head. He said, you have a daughter, right? 3rd grade. I have a daughter. She is in 3rd grade. This information exists nowhere on any public platform I use for driving. My personal social media accounts, which I keep private, do not use my real name as it appears on the Rideshare platform. My daughter's school, her grade, her existence, none of this is connected to my driver profile in any discoverable way. Here is what I want to tell you about what happened in my body in that moment, because I think it is important. Everything clarified. That is the word. The fog of maybe this is innocent and maybe I'm overthinking cleared completely, and I understood with total certainty that I was driving a person who had researched me and who was now telling me what they knew in a specific, deliberate sequence, schedule, neighborhood, child, designed to communicate the extent of the research, not accidentally revealed, deliberately communicated. He was telling me he knew these things because he wanted me to know he knew them. And I kept driving. I did not pull over. I did not raise my voice. I did not ask him to explain himself. I said, I do, and I drove. And I had 4 minutes left to the destination. I want to explain this decision because it is the decision I made correctly under pressure, and I want you to understand the logic. If I had stopped the car and asked him to get out, what happens? He is outside the car. I am outside the car to take his photo, to document anything, to have any protection. He is larger than me. We're on a city street at 11:30. The platform has a support line, but I would need to be on the phone to use it. The car was moving and the destination was 4 minutes away, and a residential neighborhood at 11:30 has people, has lights, has a chance to get him out of the car in a place where I could drive away immediately. Stopping was the wrong answer. 4 more minutes was the right answer. He said nothing else. He looked at his phone for the last 4 minutes. When I pulled up to the destination, he said, thanks, Ember. And he got out, and I drove 2 blocks, and then I pulled over and I called the platform's emergency line, and I sat in a well-lit gas station for 20 minutes with my hazard lights on. The platform took my report. They flagged the account. An officer named Burke from the local police department contacted me the following day. He was thorough. He took a statement. He asked about the specific sequence of what the passenger had said, schedule, neighborhood, child, and he asked whether I had any idea how someone could have obtained that information. I said I did not know. He said the schedule and neighborhood are things that could be built from observation over time. The child that is different, that requires a specific source. He asked me to think about data sources. Every form, every account, every service that had my real name as it appeared on the platform connected to any information about a child in 3rd grade. I went through everything I could think of. The school emergency contact form, my daughter's pediatric clinic intake form, a parent communication app the school used. All of them had my name. All of them had my daughter's information. All of them, theoretically, represented a path. I do not know which path was used. The investigation was ongoing when I last checked in with Officer Burke about 4 months after the incident. The account was flagged and closed, but not traced to a confirmed identity. The account email was a disposable address. The payment method was a prepaid card. Whoever it was had taken some care about not being traceable through the platform itself. I still drive. I want to say that. I drive because I need the income and because refusing to drive is letting the incident cost me more than it should, but I drive with specific changes that I want you to have if you drive for any platform. First, your profile name does not have to be your real name. Many platforms allow a display name that is different from your legal name on the account. Use that. There is no reason to make it easy to cross-reference your driver identity with your real-world identity. Second, the pickup confirmation chat before a ride is a preview. If a passenger says something in the pre-ride chat that is off over familiar, too specific, anything that registers, you can cancel before they are in your car. Trust that. Cancel before they are in the car. Third, if something is wrong during a ride, assess the risk of stopping versus finishing. 4 minutes to a populated destination was safer for me than a deserted street at 11:30. Do the math quickly and do it before the emotional response takes over. Fourth, report everything. I know it feels like the platform will not do anything. They flagged the account within hours of my report. They cooperated with law enforcement within a day. The report I filed at 11:35 on a Tuesday night is the reason an officer called me at 9 the following morning. Report everything. The 30 seconds it takes to use the emergency line is the 30 seconds that puts your account of the incident on record before any other account can. He told me my daughter's grade. He told me where I live. He told me what time I usually finish on Tuesdays. In a moving car at 11:30 at night. He told me all three. I kept driving. I kept my voice even. I got to the destination and I got him out of the car and I drove 2 blocks and I pulled over and I called. That is all I could do in that car. It was enough. Know your exits before you need them. Know the number before it's an emergency. And trust the thing in your chest the second something is wrong. Not 2 exchanges later, not at the destination. The second it lands, the second he said my schedule, I knew. I knew and I kept driving and I was right to keep driving and I got home, 3 encounters, 3 ordinary situations that turned out to be something else entirely. And yet every one of those people got out. Every one of them paid attention at the right moment. Subscribe if you want company in the dark. Like the video. Tell me in the comments, what are you going to do differently tomorrow because of what you heard tonight? Until next time, stay safe, or at least stay watching.